I never pictured myself as the revenge type. I always thought I'd be the guy who either forgave or walked away. But when the pile of little lies turned into a mountain of proof, everything changed. What started as a nagging doubt turned into a plan. Not to hurt her physically, not to break the law, but to make her feel the kind of damage she'd been doing to me for months. The collapse of the image she'd carefully built for the world. We'd been together for 3 years. To everyone else, we were the couple goals type. Dinners, weekend trips, Instagram photos with perfectly captioned smiles. She worked hard, had a tight friend group, and bragged about a mentor at her job who supposedly helped her get ahead. She wore the role of the supportive, polished girlfriend like a second skin. I bought into it. I trusted it. It started small. A missing phone call here, a deleted message there. She'd say she was at work late. Later, I'd find receipts that didn't match. Once I glimpsed a notification, a name I didn't know, a heart emoji. My first reaction was anger. My second was denial. I told myself I was being paranoid, but the gnawing feeling kept growing. Instead of confronting her that night, I decided to collect. Call it cowardice or strategy, I called it patience. Screenshots, dates, flight and dinner receipts, little patterns that, when assembled, formed a clear timeline. The more I gathered, the more deliberate it looked. This wasn't a fling. It was a secret life with choreographed moments she thought she could hide. When I finally sat down and looked at the folder on my laptop, there was no dramatic catharsis, just cold, efficient clarity. I could explode, throw plates, cause a scene. But I knew she'd roll it back to excuses, tears, and the same old, "it's complicated" lines that let people forgive her too easily. If she valued her reputation above all else, then the only thing that would really hurt was to remove that reputation from her. So I planned. Not to humiliate in a way that endangered anyone, not to ruin her beyond repair, and not to break the law. I planned to use truth as a weapon. Truth leaves no fingerprints. First, I mapped out the audience. Who mattered to her most? Her sister, a tight circle of friends, and one person she worshipped at work, the mentor who could make or break a promotion. Those were the people who, by being disappointed, would remove the cushioned world she lived in. I invited them to dinner. I kept the invites neutral. Catching up, nothing heavy. Some accepted without question. Others looked at me funny but showed up. She walked in wearing the familiar, confident smile, hugged a few people, and sat down, oblivious to the gravity of the table. I didn't want theatrics. I didn't want raised voices or accusations that could be brushed off. So I started with facts. I laid them out like evidence in a case. Dates, screenshots, timestamps, receipts. I said nothing inflammatory. I let the concrete details do the talking. Her first reaction was fidgeting, then denial. "It's not what it looks like," she said, voice thin. "He's a coworker. We were just talking." Her hands trembled on the glass. She tried to frame the data as coincidence, but every time she offered an explanation, another timestamp contradicted her. The faces around the table changed. Her sister's eyes filled with confusion, then hurt. One friend went white. The mentor, the person she'd always leaned on for career advice, looked at her like she'd failed an unspoken test. When my calm recitation of facts finished, there was a silence that felt like a physical thing. You could see the air rearrange itself in the room. People who once nodded at her jokes or shared inside references were suddenly distanced, trying to fit the new shape of her. But I didn't stop there. I knew that social punishment in a vacuum fades. People move on, habits return. So I did something methodical and, I'll admit, cold. I reached out privately to 2 people whose opinions she respected most at work. Not with accusations or gossip, with documentation. Clear, unemotional evidence. Nothing defamatory,
Just dates, places, and messages that could be verified. The goal wasn't to start a mob, it was to allow her colleagues to make informed decisions, the way colleagues do when trust matters for promotions and teamwork. When the mentor investigated quietly, the conversation wasn't explosive, it was professional and decisive. In a few days, the whispering started. Invitations dried up, the warm messages disappeared. Her calendar filled with fewer coffee dates, fewer work lunches. The image she'd curated, competent, moral, untouchable, started peeling off like paint in the rain. I remember watching her at a team meeting after the fallout. She sat at the edge of a room that felt smaller than before, smiling the way you smile when you're performing a role. She wasn't angry at me publicly, she was shell-shocked. The look on her face was not humiliation, so much as panic. She reached for me once in private, with that classic line, "Please, you're making a mistake." I didn't answer. I felt neither triumph nor satisfaction. I felt hollow, a weird, cold equilibrium. In the weeks that followed, some people tried to be kind. They'd ask if I was okay. They'd tell me they'd always liked me. But a few former friends of hers crossed their arms and asked why I didn't handle it differently, why I had to make it public. The moral ambiguity of what I'd done hovered in conversations like cigarette smoke, visible, irritating, unavoidable. When the dust settled, her professional opportunities slowed. She lost a mentor's support she had leaned on for years. A couple of friendships, the easy kind that feeds your confidence, vanished. The reputation economy, the things she had spent so much energy building, had taken a hit that wasn't easy to repair. People judge fast and forgive slower. That for her was the cost. And for me, justice didn't taste like anything I expected. It wasn't sweet. It was a neutral thing, like closing a book. The anger that had driven me to gather evidence faded into something quieter, a sense that truth had been honored, if not mercy. I'd wanted her to understand the weight of betrayal. She learned that the people who kept her afloat weren't immune to new information. If there's a lesson, it's ugly and simple. Revenge is less about making the other person suffer and more about rebalancing a ledger in your mind. You can choose the noisy catharsis, the screaming, the social media rants, or you can choose the quiet, thorough option that exposes facts and lets society's natural consequences do their work. The latter is colder, yes, but it's clean. I don't recommend it as a rule. I'd rather have been the person who left, healed, and moved on. But when someone you love meticulously builds a lie, and when forgiveness becomes a recurring invitation to be lied to again, sometimes the only option that stops the cycle is to remove the mask, publicly, precisely, and without malice. Months later, I've found new routines, new friends, and a surprising amount of peace. She tried to rebuild. People gave second chances, as they often do. But some things, once broken, never quite fit together the same way again.
Live better, I tell myself now. Don't let someone's false image keep you quiet. And if you ever find yourself planning revenge, make sure it doesn't make you into the person you vowed you weren't.